Hello friends and welcome. Patch 7.35 dropped a few days ago, and so I wanted to do this video to talk about things that look good currently, mainly heroes and items. The meta will probably still shift. There were some pretty big changes in this most recent patch, and so I think it's still going to take a while to really figure out, as well as the fact that some stuff is just too good and it's kind of defining the current meta, and 7.35b will be soonish, trademark, who knows. It's usually that way with these big patches, right? And then that might tone things down, and so the meta will then settle out. So I'm actually not going to spend too much time talking about any of these general changes yet, because I think it needs more time. A couple items have risen to the top, so whoever you're playing, whatever the meta ends up being, I highly recommend you try these items while you can, because they are going to get nerfed. Solar Crest, very good on supports, but even some cores are building it because of just how convenient it is. Many supports are going brown boots into the Pavis, into Solar Crest. If not, you want to finish boots, you want to buy something else, that's fine. But the Pavis buildup is very easy. You get this physical barrier. It then builds into the Solar Crest, which has no mana cost. That's definitely going to get changed. It's going to get some kind of mana cost to it, but for now, it is free. So you can just run around the map. Oh, I need to move faster? Solar Crest myself. Run through the jungle faster. Oh, we're in a fight? Solar Crest myself to protect me. Solar Crest my allies to give them a barrier. I will say it says 400 HP barrier. It is still to physical damage. It's not to magic or pure damage. Just the physical. It also doesn't stack. So right now you might see several Solar Crests being built on your team. Try not to overlap them. I think it was stacking originally. I don't think it was supposed to. When I just tested recently, it doesn't stack. So do be careful of that. There's no more aggressive potential from Solar Crest, so you don't use it on enemies. You can't use it to get Roshan, so that part is sad. It's part of the loss of Medallion, but it is now a very good defensive item with incredibly cheap components. The energy booster is the most expensive at 800. Everything is cheaper than that, so pretty much whatever you need. Like, oh, in the laning stage I need a little bit more armor, so I guess I'll buy a ring of protection. Oh, I need a little bit more health, a fluffy hat. Very convenient items for the laning stage, and then you get a Pavis really quickly after that to then, you know, be part of team fights, protect your team from tower dives, things like that. So the buildup is just fantastic. Try it out on pretty much any support you're playing, so long as you think, wow, yeah, there's some physical damage in here, I need some protection, grab the Solar Crest. Having said that, although most games have a carry type hero and physical damage in there, you're probably noticing a lot more magic damage in your games due to the change to Veil of Discord. So now it is a little bit more of a tank item, having Helm of the Iron Will, and then it is going to have this the same ability, but now it's centered around you rather than being able to cast Veil of Discord. It is a much more decreased effect from 18% to 10%. So like, why is it good now? Because it's not a dead end item. Before you buy Veil of Discord, sure, you like what it did for you, but then you just sell it and it's like, it's kind of weird, right? But now it builds into the Shivas. So a ton of spellcasting type heroes, especially those that just kind of run in, like Leshrac and Timbersaw, they've been picking up Veil of Discord. The extra regen and stats help in the laning stage. They then get this item that boosts their damage, and then they can either build a Shivas right away or just save it down the line, you know, build other things, use the Veil, and then eventually, yeah, I need to upgrade. I can now build Shivas. It is no longer that dead end item, so it is very good right now, and that's kind of why we're seeing a lot of magic heroes rising to the top. It's not just the Veil though. There are other items that have been added or changed, which seem to be encouraging either magic damage or some type of hybrid damage, where you have both physical and magic damage. So for example, Konda and Parasma, I have no idea on the pronunciation, but both of these seem to be bridging the gap between I right click, but I have spells, but I also right click, and before I only really had items for one or the other, but now these items seem to be that middle ground. There's other things that change as well. Bloodstone with a 75 AoE radius. This is again going back to those spellcasters who are buying like Shivas and now sometimes Bloodstone, and then they're like, yeah, I just had this bunch of AoE spell damage. Now, like, these two items are synergizing really well. We've got things like Divine Rapier now having spell amplification to it. So in the past, pretty much only right click scaled into the ultra late game, but now maybe spell damage has a way to do so as well between the Divine Rapier and those other new items. As a counter to that, items like Eternal Shroud and Pipe got reworked a little bit. E-Blade for well, I'm actually not fully sure who's going to end up building it, but on supports, it's a lot easier to build E-Blade now because it builds from Aether Lens and Ghost Scepter, both items that supports frequently build, and they were kind of dead-end items a lot of the time. I mean, Ghost Scepter in the past could also build into E-Blade, but you didn't usually. But now, yeah, I got the Aether Lens, I got a Ghost Scepter, I get to that late game, yeah, 1600 gold recipe, that's not that bad, and I can use it to save allies, I can use it aggressively if I need to. So lots of like changes like this seem to be encouraging more magic damage, and I think as a response it might take a little bit of time, but I think like Pipe, Eternal Shroud, Mage Slayer, Glimmer Cape, I think those items are going to rise in value as well. I know that sounds funny because earlier I was like, yeah, Pavis, Solar Crest, free physical damage reduction. That is still true. I don't know how it like works together, but people are building the Solar Crest and then they're going for the magic resist, and then the cores, they're building all these things we're talking about. Of course, not every single game, but I think you get the idea. Things like Revenant's Brooch as well. I haven't seen actually too much of this, but in theory, it's there where you can like get more magic damage as well. In terms of the neutral items, a lot of the new items, they're pretty cool. I haven't gotten to try all of them that much in depth yet. Safety Bubble seemed to have some bugged interactions at the start, but now it seems decent, especially if you have a hero like Abaddon or Dazzle who uses health as a part of their spell. Safety Bubble can actually eat some of that cost essentially for free and then recharge the barrier quite quickly. So that seems cool. It is just, of course, a tier 1 item, so maybe not that much long-term value compared to the Royal Jelly. This is actually, I think, going to be my favorite neutral item right now because you can use it. It has got HP and mana as well as the regen when you activate it. But guess what? After you pick up your next neutral, you can just keep the Royal Jelly in the backpack, and it is going to continue building charges at a decreased rate, but it will continue building charges, and so then, you can use your tier 2 neutral in a fight, you win the fight. Hey, I'm pretty low on resources now, swap in the Royal Jelly, activate it, then swap back to the neutral you want. Now I know, yeah, it's only like 100 mana and 200 health, but it's free. It's free anytime you're carrying it. So I really like it. It's kind of like the same way the shovel has long-term value. If you dug up like mangoes and salves and keep for later, or you can even pick the shovel back up, continue to dig. So I'm really liking the Royal Jelly from the times I've tried it. I highly recommend you guys give it a go as well. I haven't gone to try as many of these quite yet. Doubloon, again, haven't tried it that much, but it seems pretty lackluster. Not loving it. Many of these others, especially the later game ones, I've only gotten to see a couple times because sometimes the game doesn't go that far. Sometimes you don't see them as much. So we'll come back to these in the future when I experience them more. For heroes, disclaimer, this is not a list of every hero I think is amazing right now. In fact, some of them are quite bad. These are heroes that get changed and I just keep track of them. So we're only going to talk about a couple of these. First being Leshrac. I do think Leshrac is probably the best hero in the game right now. He just synergizes so well with many of the changes, such as like the Veil change into the Shivas, the Bloodstone, things like that, as well as he got some buffs himself, such as an attack slow on his E. So he has the best win rate right now, and he's fantastic as a core. In pub games, I don't think you can play Leshrac carry, but you did see that. Team Liquid ran it, and I think the pro scene will be able to do that. Pubs, I don't know, maybe party games you can give it a go. However, in pubs, you'll see I've got Leshrac here in 4 support because I think he's so good right now, I think you can run him as a support. Now, his spells will shove in the lane. It's just a bit uncontrollable, and that's why I've only tried him as a 4 support. I think I played like 4 or 5 games with him. I think they go pretty well, where you don't go... Well, actually, I haven't finalized the build or anything yet, but I haven't been going for core Leshrac items as a support. I've been going like Arcanes into Shard, which I think is really good, but cores often don't build the Shard right away because they like the other items first, but I can because I'm a support. I just go like Arcanes, Shard into like Solar Crest or Glimmer, whatever my team needs, just like general utility. Just throw out a lot of stuns and like follow up people, add a lot of damage as a support, so they kind of need to focus you, but you're also not that important. Got a lot of tower push, a lot of farming potential, so I like the idea. I don't know if it'll catch on because it might just be that he is too powerful right now. He's going to get nerfed and then support Leshrac won't be that good. But if you want to give it a go right now, I think it's pretty fun. The skill build wise, I've been starting with E, getting 1 point in Q, and then I think max Diabolic Edict is the way to go from there and then back to your stun. but still kind of exploring it a little bit. Lashrak's not the only one doing that type of build, though. Other heroes have been doing quite well are like Timbersaw, Sand King, Underlord. I've seen some like Venomancer, Darkseer, Vipers. I even seen like Huskar go Veil into Shivas, Death Prophet. So there's quite a few heroes who are abusing the current Veil, and if you guys are core players, I highly recommend you give it a go as well. I haven't really done it on any supports. I don't know how viable it would be, but potentially it just seems like a very strong item, but I think it makes the most sense on the core heroes. For the support players, I highly recommend you try Crystal Maiden right now. And it's not even about the buffs she got to her shard, which I do think are pretty decent, but think about what we've just been talking about. There are so many spellcasters in the game right now. What do spellcasters like? They like casting spells. They need mana to cast spells. Did you know the Twin Gates now have a mana cost to them, so it's harder to rotate between side lanes? Yes, they do. And so Crystal Maiden kind of solves a lot of this for her team with her aura, which did get a slight buff as well. So strong laning presence, if you know what you're doing. It can be a little dicey. She is a fragile hero with high mana cost, but when you know what you're doing with Crystal Maiden, which I think there's guides on the channel, I don't know, it might be outdated, I don't know, whatever. If you know what you're doing to get through the laning stage and you provide your whole team with the mana, you can kind of keep the tempo going. I've seen Crystal Maidens do very well for themselves, so I highly recommend her. Lion also seems to be doing better, or at least people are trying it. I am seeing a lot of max mana builds. I don't know if it's memes. I don't know how legit it is. Some games it seems better than others. It does. Again, back to the spellcasters. On the enemy team, you're stealing their mana. On your team, you can provide mana, because that was one of the previous buffs to Mana Drain. Mana Drain now doing damage, right? The fact that it was a 25 talent before and they just gave it to him for free, that's how garbage of a state Lion was in. He literally needed a free level 25 talent to like, maybe this makes him viable. So people are trying it. I don't know how good it will be if in the end you still end up maxing stun. I have seen it kind of work. I've also seen it fail. But he does seem viable. I'm just not sure the like optimal way to play it. But I think it works, and I think it does kind of fit in with what we're seeing. All these spellcasters Lion is good with. I've been seeing people try Omni Knight. I thought it would be a little better myself as well, but his win rate is dropping. And that is even considering that there was a bug some people were abusing. Hopefully none of you don't abuse bugs, but you could drop the Aghanims, pick it up, get infinite charges. I think it's been fixed already. So that, not good. Very difficult to play into that. Still had a losing win rate with that bug in the game. So I don't think he's in a great place, and I think it's because he is best versus physical damage. And as I've repeated and will continue to repeat, there's a lot of spell damage and hybrid damage heroes that are kicking ass right now. And so if Omni Knight, he doesn't really fit that meta, then he's going to get wrecked. In the same way, Broodmother, a lot of people were noticing the new Bloodthorn gives flat magic damage to everything that hits that target. So when you have a bunch of spiderlings, they all get 60 damage per attack. There is insane DPS potential there. Her win rate also dropped. And again, there's a lot of AoE magic damage heroes who see the spiders come in and they just kill them. And the spiders don't get a hit, and that's very sad. It's sad. If you're a Broodmother player, of course, many of you guys hate Broodmother, so then you're like, yeah, wreck her spiderlings. If you get a Dispel, you also counter the Bloodthorn. So it kind of works both ways, where Bloodthorn is good versus these spellcasters, but Bloodthorn's much more expensive than a Veil. It's like 5 times the cost. So Broodmother doesn't seem to be doing that well, even though that looked like it could be good. Now, someone who is doing well with a lot of uncontrollable AoE magic damage is Abaddon. So he got a lot of buffs that really surprised me. So he has been good, and people have been trying him in all sorts of different roles. I just noticed I accidentally have him here twice. Oops, that's how good he is. People are trying him everywhere. So he has DPS on his passive when he does proc it. As a support, I think you can sometimes start with it, but I still see a lot of people just going QW to begin with, because it's not easy to get 4 attacks off as a support sometimes, so you don't have to take that passive. But as a core, it is giving him a lot of extra damage. The talent changes to him also seem very strong for support Abaddon, and so when you do like eventually proc your ultimate and there's like a bunch of spells doing damage to you, that's kind of nice. Having said that, Shiva's does reduce healing, and since it's so popular, kind of hurting Abaddon, but his ultimate lasts long enough that even with reduced healing, he often reaches full health anyways, and his shield is not affected by the healing, right? His Q is, but the shield is not. And that is where a big part of the strength of support Abaddon lies. So even though it's an interesting dynamic between the two, Abaddon's win rate has shot up, so it seems like he's doing fine for himself. For all you Witch Doctor enjoyers, he was one of the best supports, and then you might be wondering, are his changes a buff or a nerf? I actually think it's working for him, because his heal lost the DPS component to it, but if you think about it, support Witch Doctor, probably not supposed to be on the front line trying to DPS the enemy. Core Witch Doctor, yes, so that part nerfed, but for support Witch Doctor, you kind of want to be in the back, healing up your teammates who are frontlining for you, and now that the heal is stronger, I think that actually fits his playstyle more. So his win rate also increased. For carries, Anti-Mage has been doing well. We've been talking about spell damage. He's got natural magic resistance. He's got the mana burn against these spellcasters, so he's been doing very well for himself. I think Faceless Void for a similar reason, along with, just being one of the best late game carries ever. His time dilation, very strong versus spellcasters, and if he's not killed by the spell combos, right, they come in, they try to burst him, he just time walks a lot of that damage off if they haven't successfully killed him. So he has been doing very well. Juggernaut and Lifestealer also seemed like they have a window against all these magic damage heroes, but I don't know. I think the spin change just wasn't good enough for Juggernaut. A lot of people are trying him, so you might be seeing him a lot, but actually his win rate is down. So I think those changes just weren't quite enough. Maybe if they buff it a little bit, he will rise up as a hero who can kind of deal with a lot of the spell damage in the early game. Same with Rage on Lifestealer. Now, I think Lifestealer is in a better spot than Juggernaut, but he's just at about 50%. So as long as the game is good for Lifestealer, he can play it, but he did get nerfed. The movement speed on Rage, which hurts him. That's all I've got for you guys for now, but I would actually love to hear from you guys, any of your crazy ideas on what is good or bad. I can only play so much Dota and watch so much Dota, so if you guys have something new that I didn't mention here, I'd love to hear it. Leave it in the comments, or if you want to drop by the live streams on Twitch, I will give it a shot live potentially, so you can find me there as well. Thank you for watching. Keep an eye out for, as I learn more, I'll make more videos and let you guys know what the meta seems to be and what heroes truly rise to the top. Thank you. See you in one of those.